We pick back up with Ash just as he is leaving Vermilion City. After a somewhat arduous trek, our young hero finally made it to the city, though to his dismay, when he arrived at the gym, he was met with a trio of listless leaders, none of whom had any interest in battling him after their recent string of losses. As a result, he was simply given a cascade badge, in the hope that he would go away, and with no other real option, the young man did as he was bid, feeling highly dissatisfied with the encounter. Now though he is back on the open road, and the prospect of adventure with Squirtle and his other friends by his side fills him with hope. Unfortunately, due to the absence of two particular friends, those being Brock and Misty, this next leg of Ash's journey is no easier than the previous one, as without their guidance, he quickly finds himself lost and desperately short on food. Thankfully, even if his sense of direction is lackluster, the same cannot be said for Ash's sense of smell, with him quickly catching wind of some delicious cooking in the distance and following it to a small cabin by a secluded lake. Pokemon play merrily around the lake, though when they catch sight of the human, they all scatter, aside from a highly aggressive Bulbasaur, who barrels directly towards the boy in an attempt to drive him away. Bringing out Squirtle, Ash prepares to battle, though before he can even call his first move, another voice rings out, that of Melanie as she forbids any fighting here. Respecting this, Bulbasaur comes to a stop, while Ash in turn calls his buddy back to him, patting it on the head and thanking it for having his back. He then addresses Melanie, apologizing for causing trouble, and explains how he's lost and followed his nose here. With a chuckle, the blue-haired woman says that it's quite alright, inviting him inside for some food, and explaining this place is a sanctuary for injured and abandoned Pokemon. This only makes Ash feel more guilty for jumping into a fight, but all the same he expresses admiration for Melanie's goal, as well as Bulbasaur's dedication to protect the other Pokemon. With an air of melancholy, the village matron agrees that Bulbasaur is a great defender, though she fears that if it stays here, it will never be able to live up to its full potential. Truthfully, she'd like nothing more than for it to go out into the world with a kind trainer like Ash, though at her feet, the seed Pokemon gives an annoyed little grunt, as if questioning just how kind Ash really is. Fortunately, Ash has plenty of chances to answer that question over the next few days, as after discovering how ill-equipped he is to travel on his own, Melanie's empathetic nature prevents her from sending him on his way until she's helped him to become more self-sufficient. She does this by teaching him all she's learned from living out in nature, such as how to identify edible plants, how to clean and dress minor injuries, and how to use the sun and stars to make sure he never gets lost again. During this time, his Pokemon get to know the residents of the hidden village, with Ash's shy Kakuna finally feeling comfortable enough to emerge from its pupil state as a Beedrill, while Pidgey and Squirtle recount the stories of their time with Ash, slowly allowing the traumatized Pokemon to trust him. Though Bulbasaur remains suspicious, even it cannot deny Ash's good intentions when during the third day of the boys' stay, the hidden village receives a pair of new guests, Munch and Cassidy. After the fiasco at Mount Moon, the pair of thieves need a win badly, and luckily for them, one of Dr. Namber's drones discovered this undefended little hideaway, so now all they gotta do is swipe the Pokemon, right? Wrong, as after all Melanie has done for him, Ash isn't about to allow these poor Pokemon to be stolen like the ones in Viridian. Teaming up with Bulbasaur, he quickly sends the pair blasting off, and in doing so earns the grass type's trust, so much so that a few hours later when Ash prepares to depart, with a small bag of Melanie's trail mix for the road, he is stopped by Bulbasaur who demands a battle. Smiling, Melanie explains that this is Bulbasaur's way of testing to see if it should go with him, and eager for the chance to have the spunky toad as a companion, Ash calls forth Squirtle to finish what they started when they arrived. Even with a type disadvantage, Squirtle proves more than a match for Bulbasaur, using its hard shell to protect itself from the worst of the grass type's razor leaves and vine whips, as it closes in and uses tackle to knock Bulbasaur off its feet. Due to this being a friendly match, Bulbasaur accepts defeat here, having been sufficiently impressed by the strength of Ash and Squirtle's bond, and so when the boy throws a Pokeball, the seed Pokemon puts up no resistance, allowing itself to be caught. After this comes the encounter with Damien and Charmander, but here not much changes from canon, as Ash still saves Charmander from the rain, though with no Jesse and James to dig a pit trap, Ash is able to follow after it when Charmander goes back to its rock in the morning to wait for Damien. Knowing that the little lizard truly won't budge without the disloyal scumbag say so, Ash and his Pokemon decide to sit with Charmander and try to convince it to come with them. Among Ash's Pokemon, Bulbasaur is the most vocal, using its innate gift for mediation to try and form a compromise, as though it knows that Damien will never come back. It is also plain to see that Charmander values its loyalty over its own life. To this end, Bulbasaur suggests that Charmander come with them at least until they meet Damien again, since if they're on the move, they'll have a better chance of running into him, with the assurance that Ash will not stop it if it chooses to return to its old trainer at that point. Like Bulbasaur itself was, Charmander is hesitant, remembering Damien's instruction to wait on this rock. Though having seen the type of person Ash is, the little lizard does eventually deem this offer acceptable, allowing Ash to catch it, and growing the young man's team to 5 as he sets off once again. Finally, there is the encounter with the Squirtle Squad. Like in canon, this begins when Ash finds himself at the bottom of one of their pit traps, though this time when the tiny turtles come to jeer at him, Ash's own Squirtle bursts from its ball to lecture them right back. This intrigues the leader Squirtle, who suggests that maybe Ash's Squirtle should ditch this loser and join their gang, since it's way more fun. But with a stern scowl, Ash's Squirtle retorts that this boy is his friend and partner, so he'll never abandon him. It then punctuates this thought with a water gun, which strikes the leader in the face, causing it to tumble back onto its shell and flail helplessly. By now, Ash and Squirtle have made their way out of the pit, and as the rest of the Squirtle Squad help their boss back to its feet, it barks angrily at its human-trained counterpart that it will pay for making it look bad in front of the crew. The leader Squirtle then challenges Ash's to a battle, declaring that if it loses it has to leave its precious trainer and join the Squirtle Squad. Scoffing, Ash's Squirtle snaps back that it's not going to do that, since there's nothing in it for it, but this just results in the entire squad erupting in mocking laughter as they sneer that it's scared, and that it knows it can't win, since it was trained by such a loser. Despite its generally stoic demeanor, one trait Ash's Squirtle has inherited from him is his temper, and upon hearing this slight against its best friend, Squirtle rounds on the squad, snarling that fine, it'll give the leader its wish. It then looks up at Ash, and though the boy does not speak the language of Pokemon, he understands a challenge when he sees one, taking his place behind Squirtle and giving his opening command. What follows is a brief battle, as while the Squirtle squad leader is gutsy, Ash shares its trainer's determination, going so far as to evolve in order to win this battle. Once this has happened, the match is as good as over, with the 5 members of the squad all taking a knee in front of Wartortle and accepting their loss. Looking up at Wartortle, the leader offers it its sunglasses, stating that since it won, it is now their boss, though with a shake of its head, Wartortle replies that it doesn't want either its glasses or its job. All it wants is for the Squirtle Squad to stop harassing travelers. Nodding, the leader replies that this is something they can do. Then as it rises back to its feet, it shakes hands with Wartortle. Not long after this, the boss Zoku turtles depart, vowing to turn over a new leaf like the boss wanted, and though Wartortle does sigh a little at the forced sobriquet, it doesn't press the issue, instead turning back to Ash, who is delighted that his starter has evolved. Toddling over to its trainer, the turtle Pokemon allows itself to be wrapped in a hug, then together, the pair set off as well, eager to see what adventures await them just over the horizon. Back in Vermilion City, Gary sits across from Pikachu, his decision weighing heavier on him than the Thunderstone in his palm. From his hospital bed, Pikachu watches his trainer questioningly, his eyes flicking from Gary's face to the Thunderstone in his hands, and when Gary sees this, he speaks up, seeing no point in delaying any further. Looking Pikachu in the eye, he begins to tell him that he doesn't blame the mouse for their loss to Surge today, since what cost them the win wasn't a lack of skill, but a lack of power. Simply put, Raichu are stronger than Pikachu, so this outcome was inevitable. The only question is what they're going to do about it. While they could train night and day to overcome Raichu's natural advantage, the amount of effort they'd have to put in for the gain would not be worth it in his opinion, not when another option is available to them. He then lays the Thunderstone on Pikachu's bed, near enough that he can reach it, but far enough that it will not accidentally trigger the evolution, as he says that he believes evolution is their best course of action. By doing so, Pikachu will immediately be boosted to Raichu's level, maybe even higher due to his incredible latent potential. But not only that, he will also be able to make the most of his abilities once he is in his final form, as he will finally have a body that can handle his full potential. However, Gary is also aware that this is a life-altering and permanent change, so he will not force it on Pikachu if the electric type does not want it. Understandably, this is all a lot for Pikachu to take in at once, and as the electric rodent's eyes fall on the stone, he weighs his options. On one hand, to evolve now would be to admit his inferiority to a Raichu, but on the other, it's like Gary said. Right now he's not able to harness his full potential, meaning he has an unfair handicap. Evolving would remove that handicap, turning the rematch with Raichu into a proper test of his abilities. On top of that, it would also secure his position at the forefront of the team, as while he has kept pace with Nidorino since Mount Moon, he knows the rabbit has another evolution, so to refuse his own would be to accept falling behind once again, something he desperately does not want thanks to the pride his time with Gary has given him. At this point, Pikachu's mind is pretty much made up, and as he rises to his feet, it is with a look of determination in his eyes. Then without hesitation, he reaches out and lays a paw on the Thunderstone. The change is almost instantaneous, as in a flash of white light, Pikachu is transformed into a powerful-looking Raichu, and as Gary meets the orange newcomer's eyes, Raichu's cheeks flash eagerly, telling the youth that he has chosen his path, so now it is time they walk it together. Thanks to this evolution, all of Raichu's injuries from the last battle are gone, with the electric rodent being full of energy, rather literally in fact, as his electric battery is fully recharged, meaning all that's left to do now is return to the gym and see if this decision Gary and Raichu has made is the right one. When the pair re-enter the gym, Surge is surprised to see them back so soon, though all the same he agrees to a rematch when he sees that Gary took his advice and evolved that pipsqueak Pikachu into something with real power. However, he quickly comes to rue that piece of guidance when the battle begins, as like Gary predicted, evolution has given Raichu access to all of his power without the limiters of a smaller, weaker body. Putting this to use, Gary's Raichu makes short work of Surge's, while also turning the gym into a site of ruination, the likes of which Gary has never seen. Even Surge is shocked, commenting that he hasn't seen a Pokemon cause that much destruction since the war, and counseling Gary to work with his partner on controlling that output, so they don't go overboard. Scoffing, Gary calls this a bit rich coming from the guy who put his starter and countless other Pokemon in the hospital, but all the same he approaches the big man and takes his badge, telling Raichu to come on, since they've got places to be. Where those places are, however, even Gary doesn't know, as with Vermilion being a nexus both by land and sea, the choice of where to go next is a tricky one. Heading down to the harbour to see if there are any ships heading to a city with a gym, he soon comes across a pair of schoolgirls who tell him about an exclusive Pokemon trainer party on the St. Anne cruise liner, which will be travelling all around Kanto's southern islands, meaning he'll have plenty of opportunity to get his next badge while also getting a tan. The girls then give him a stack of free tickets, saying this should be enough for him and all his friends, before departing in a hurry. While this is certainly odd behaviour, Gary doesn't question it, being very used to people giving him free stuff. And so a few days later when the party on the St. Anne is set to begin, he, his cheerleaders, and his Pokemon board the boat for a voyage none of them are ever likely to forget. As promised, it is a swanky affair where the cream of the crop are able to meet, battle, and trade at their leisure. Gary of course takes full advantage of the opportunity, having his Butterfree battle a gentleman's Raticate, and after defeating the normal type, agrees to a trade. While on the surface, trading away a winning Pokemon for a loser would seem like a bad idea, Gary knows from his gramps that traded Pokemon tend to grow faster due to having experience with multiple trainers, making this a smart decision in the long run. Unfortunately, Gary isn't able to make any other trades as not long into the trip, the serving staff and several other employees of the St. Anne reveal themselves to be members of Team Rocket, commanding the party guests to hand over all their Pokemon. At their head stands the two girls from the harbour, though now Gary sees that they are an azure-haired young man and a magenta-haired young woman with a Meowth by their side. Exultantly, the duo command their grunt underlings to seize every last Pokemon, though this is perhaps unwise, as when a very unlucky grunt lays his hands on Raichu, he receives a nasty shock that knocks him out cold. The sight of this inspires the assembled trainers, and so rallying around Gary and Raichu, they begin to fight off their Team Rocket captors. However, all thoughts of fighting are soon forgotten when a large wave begins to capsize the ship, at which point survival becomes the name of the game. Thanks to not having any remorse for his trade, Gary along with Raichu and his fan club are among the first to make it to the lifeboats, watching along with everyone else as Team Rocket makes their escape, and the St. Anne begins its final voyage to the bottom of the ocean. Meanwhile, Ash has just arrived in Vermilion City, and with his trademark brand of gung-ho determination, he heads straight for the gym. Even when Surge reveals that his partner is a Raichu, Ash approaches this gym battle just like his last one, by putting all his faith in Wartortle and its new evolution to carry him through. Unfortunately in this case, faith cannot trump type matchups, with the turtle Pokemon going down as easily as Surge's Raichu did to Gary's. However, even in the face of loss, Ash is not discouraged, as if he has learned anything during his trip from Cerulean, it's how to be resilient and keep moving forward no matter what gets thrown at him. To this end, he starts working with Wartortle to get stronger, and though he is not yet aware of the concept of battle training in the same way Gary is, he quickly develops his own methods, such as running from one end of the harbour to the other in order to build up speed and endurance, or playing that bubble bounce game from the day they first met, and attempting to beat their best score as a means to improve agility and dexterity. Finally, after several days of this, the pair feel ready to take another crack at Surge, and as always, the lieutenant is eager to receive challenges. Being a brash man, Surge takes the first move, but this is exactly what Ash and Wartortle want, as when the large rat attempts to belly flop the turtle into submission, Wartortle simply retreats back into its shell, enduring the hit and using the force of the impact to spin away. Thanks to their training, the water type then steers itself towards the wall, bouncing off two of them to pick up speed, as it comes back and strikes Raichu with the strength of its own attack magnified by that speed. This leaves both Surge and Raichu bemused, with the former soldier deciding to vent some of this frustration in the form of a thunderbolt, knowing that even if the kid and his starter have been training, this will take him out just like it did last time. Gathering electricity in its cheeks, Raichu then lets loose a massive thunderbolt which soars right towards Wartortle, though here too Ash has a plan, having his buddy use rapid fire bubbles to create a wall which soaks up most of the damage, so that when the attack ends, Wartortle is injured, but not beaten. However, this is not the only point of the move, as when the battlers take a look at the field, they see that all the burst bubbles have created a water trail leading directly to Raichu. Flashing a confident grin, Ash then tells his partner to end this, and with a matching smile, Wartortle takes a running leap, spinning as it does, so that when it hits the water, it acts like a slip and slide, accelerating the tortoise's movement, and allowing this newly dubbed rapid spin attack to deal extra damage that strikes Raichu, taking it off its feet. Then just to add insult to injury, as the bulky rodent lands on its back, Wartortle bounces off the wall behind it, slamming into it once again and leaving it with a cartoonish lump on its head and spirals for eyes. For a moment, no one speaks. Then with a thunderous guffaw, Surge calls that one heck of an upset, congratulating Ash on his win and finally addressing him by name. Beaming, Ash thanks the lieutenant, then after wrapping his starter in a hug, he approaches the big man to receive his badge, pinning it to his vest and vowing never to forget the lessons he learned in preparation for this rematch. Returning to Gary, he has at last made it back to land, as thanks to the captain of the St. Anne sending out an SOS before the ship sank, the passengers and crew were not left to drift in the open ocean for long, with several nearby boats receiving the message and coming to their aid. One such vessel had been en route to the island paradise Porta Vista, with Gary and his cheerleaders deciding to hitch a ride. After the harrowing events aboard the cruise liner, the tropical wonder is exactly what they need, with the young oak and his friends taking some time to get some much needed R&R. During this time, Gary runs into his Gramps and Ash's mum Dill at a local beauty contest, with him telling the pair about his recent exploits and showing them how far he and Raichu have come. The professor is delighted to see this, praising that he knew Gary and his old Pikachu would be a good fit, while Delia asks if the boy's heard from Ash lately, stating that the boy hasn't called her since he left on his journey. Though Gary has no fondness for his hyperactive rival, he can see how much the absence of her son worries Mrs. Ketchum, and so promises to pass on any word he gets to her and his Gramps. Though Gary had only intended to stay here a few days while waiting for a ferry back to the mainland, he quickly finds himself enjoying Porta Vista so much that before he knows it, almost 2 weeks have passed. Thankfully, he is not the only one enjoying it. As well as cheering squad are having a great time, the true winners of this vacation are the Pokemon. Raticate has begun to open up to the rest of the team, finding a close friend in Raichu as a fellow rodent, and in turn Raichu seems to be having an easier time adapting to his new form now that he has someone like himself to play with. Meanwhile, Ever the Warrior, Nidorino seems focused on nothing but battle, venturing into rock pools and other shells in search of wild Pokemon he can test himself against. However, all good things must come to an end, and as the summer begins to draw to a close, so does Gary announce that they should really be getting back on the road. Bidding Porta Vista goodbye, Team Gary catches a ferry to Maiden's Peak, though they don't stay here long as there is little of interest, instead venturing west towards the center of Kanto's mainland. Due to having travelled by cruise ship, Gary's convertible is still back in Vermilion City, and when the boy calls his driver, she informs him that it will take her some time to rendezvous with the rest of them, meaning this next leg of the journey will have to be undertaken on foot. Though Gary has experienced travelling this way, the cheer squad aren't entirely thrilled with this development, but all the same they cheer the young charge on as he leads the way. Wanting to check the condition of his Pokemon before he reaches another gym, Gary also institutes practice battles once again, with this becoming a nightly occurrence, though it quickly becomes apparent that there is a problem with a member of his team, that being Raichu. Though Raichu has gotten used to his larger body, the same cannot be said for his larger power. With each electric attack the mouse employs dealing massive damage and leaving a path of destruction in its wake. For the first time, Gary wonders if maybe Surge's Raichu hospitalizing all its opponents was not a result of sadism, but rather a lack of control over its own power. Not that it matters, as Gary has no intention of allowing his starter to be so sloppy, and so begins to work with him to learn to regulate his electrical output. Unfortunately, this is easier said than done, as in order to practice control, Raichu needs someone to test the levels against, and as it stands, none of his Pokemon can withstand a thunderbolt from the electric rodent. Even Nidorino cannot stand up to the raw power of Raichu, though here at least there is a solution, as if he were to become Nido King, his newly acquired ground typing would grant him an electrical immunity, making him the perfect training partner, on top of allowing him to begin reaching his own full potential just like Raichu has. And as fortune would have it, Gary knows just how he's going to help Nidorino evolve, remembering Seymour the scientist promised to give him a moonstone when he made it to Celadon City. As a result, this becomes his next destination, with Gary even choosing not to pass through Saffron City, since the road he's currently on is a more direct path to Celadon. However, even the most straightforward road has detours, such as when Gary and co come across Bill and Cassidy, chasing a terrified Poliwag through the woods. Remembering these lowlives from their prior encounter, Gary does not hesitate to step in, having his Raticate go up against Cassidy's, with his revealing that it knows Jump Kick, a move that its species does not usually learn, but which deals super effective damage to Cassidy's rat, knocking it out in a single hit. Helpfully, Steve attempts to back up his partner with Primeape, but this just gives Raichu an excuse to enter the fray and help his friend, showing off that devastating power, and with no need to hold back, he promptly sends Team Rocket blasting off again. With the battle now over, Gary and friends then proceed to get back on their way, but are stopped by Poliwag, who affectionately nuzzles the boy's legs as thanks for saving it from the bad guys. Patting its head, Gary tells the water type not to sweat it, but still the tadpole stays by his side, even following him when he begins to walk. Gary's cheerleaders all think this is adorable, with even Raichu finding the smaller Pokemon's sweet demeanor endearing. Seeing that Poliwag isn't going anywhere, Gary bends down to ask if it would like to come with him, and after receiving a big-lipped smile of confirmation, pulls out a Pokeball and adds it to his current main roster. Finally, after a couple of weeks on the road, Gary and his cheer squad arrive in Celadon City, and as expected, their first port of call is none other than the university, where Seymour is waiting for them. As promised, he has the Moonstone fragment ready for Gary, though in his usual way, he talks the boy's ear off first, about all he learnt during his time living with the Clefairy and Clefable of Mount Moon. However, after what seems like an eternity, he does eventually hand over the stone, with Gary thanking him, then heading somewhere with a wide open enough space to accommodate Nidorino's soon-to-be enhanced bulk. Settling on a local park, Gary brings out his first capture, confirming with Nidorino one last time that he really wants this. Though unlike Raichu, there is no hesitation, as the Poison Pin Pokemon gives his trainer a determined look, meant to convey his readiness to take this next big step towards even greater power. Reading this loud and clear, Gary places the Moonstone on Nidorino's head, and watches as he grows into a hulking Goliath, whose fearsome appearance truly seems worthy of the title Nido King. Getting a feel for his new body, Nidoking is eager to try his hand, rather literally in fact, at a battle. And as it happens, Gary knows just the place, having spotted a gym on his way to the university. Heading over there, the boy and his companions are met by a group of young women who admit them without issue, asking how many badges Gary has, then after learning he has 3, informing him that Mistress Erica is ready to battle whenever he is. Strolling confidently into the battlefield, Gary finds the place is completely covered in greenery, and it doesn't take a genius to guess what Erica's type specialty is. Thankfully, Nidoking's poison typing keeps him from being weak to grass like other ground types, though all the same when the boy brings him out, Erica looks surprised, as if she had not expected a challenger to use a ground type against her of all people. All the same, when the drill Pokemon comes stomping onto the field, Erica meets him with her Tangela, telling the writhing Lovecraftian enigma to use Constrictor on its much larger foe. Lashing out with its vines, Tangela attempts to bind Nidoking's arms in an attempt to stop him from attacking, but with the power of evolution on his side, the poison ground type simply yanks on his bindings, sending the much smaller Tangela soaring towards him so he can deliver a super effective poison sting headbutt that downs the grass type in one hit. Next up for Erica is Weepinbell, and this goes about as badly as it did for Tangela, as immediately Nidoking stomps down twice on its opponent, squishing the sentient squash with a not very effective double kick, and bringing Erica down to 1. For her final Pokemon, the grass specialist decides to pull out all the stops, bringing forth her Vileplume, and asking it to hold nothing back. However, this would suggest it will get a chance to attack, something Nidoking has no intention of giving it. As in an attempt to assert dominance, the drill Pokemon rushes in, catching Vileplume in a lariat, and slamming it so hard into the ground that the very foundations of the gym begin to crack. Even Erica's ace Pokemon cannot withstand such brutality, and as it lies unconscious in the crater its own body has made, Nidoking lets out a bellow to the heavens, declaring once and for all that he is the king. And just like that, the battle is over, with Gary's cheerleaders giving a rousing round of cheers for both Gary and Nidoking, as the young man returns his friend and makes his way over to Erica. Though the gym leader is a little rattled by this turn of events, she remains poised and graceful as she presents Gary with a rainbow badge, congratulating him on his victory, and complimenting him on how well he has raised his Nidoking. Preening a little under this praise, Gary adds the badge to his case, grinning that this is badge number 4, meaning he's halfway to his goal of entering the Pokemon League. This thought then stirs another in Gary, as he remembers his promise to his Gramps and Mrs. Ketchum, and so asks if Erica's seen an idiot with wild black hair and one of those commemorative Pokemon League caps come through here lately. Smiling, Erica replies that he must mean Ash. Yes, she battled him a few days ago. Smirking, Gary asks how his rival did, though still with that smile on her face, the gym leader replies that he did quite well. In fact, she initially asked him to stick around and be a guest speaker at her next trainer class, but unfortunately, he said he couldn't afford to wait, since he was already focused on winning his 6th badge. At the word 6th, Gary almost falls off his feet, demanding to know if Erica means that Ash already has 5 badges. And when the grass specialist nods, confirming that hers was his 5th, Gary finds himself at a loss for words. How could he have fallen behind that loser? And that's where we'll leave things. What will Gary's reaction be to Ash having the lead over him for the first time in their history? Can Ash hold on to his miraculous advantage? And how did he manage to pull ahead of his rival in the first place? Find out as the journey continues.